Hi, this is Rachel, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining. I blog over at thislovelylittle.farmhouse.com, and today I'm just going to be giving y'all kind of a life update, what's been going on, why I haven't had any videos in a month and a half, and the craziness of life that has been those past month and a half. So on my last video, the last video I did was a 2-week update. It was 2 weeks after baby James was born. And we, at that point, were in the midst of dealing with jaundice. We were back and forth to the hospital every other day because his jaundice level was high enough that they had to monitor it, but it wasn't high enough that they would put him, admit him to the hospital and put him under the light. Which, looking back, if they would have done that in the beginning, we possibly could have avoided all of this stuff that we've been dealing with for the past month and a half, but they didn't, so we did have to deal with all that stuff. But and obviously, if you read the title and the thumbnail, the biggest part of this video is going to be talking about baby James having brain surgery, because that's what totally derailed our lives. It's what totally derailed our videos, and it's just been crazy ever since then. So 2 weeks, when he was 2 weeks old, we were dealing with the jaundice stuff, back and forth to the hospitals, and that lasted until he was about 3 weeks old. And at that point, it had gotten low enough, and the doctor said it was breast milk jaundice and not something we had to worry about because it wasn't due to any kind of thing with his kidneys. I think it's kidneys that has to do with that. So we didn't have to keep doing that, thank goodness. Quit doing all that, and right after that, guess what? We got COVID from being back and forth in the hospitals and the doctor offices all that time. We came down with COVID, and we didn't figure it out until Christmas, like almost Christmas Day. We finally figured out that that's what it was. Kind of put 2 and 2 together. My whole family ended up getting it, so Christmas got canceled. We were not able to get together at all and do any kind of family gathering. That all got canceled, which is sad and disappointing, but it is what it is. So I had it, my husband had it, my daughter had it. We did not think that James had it. He had no symptoms at all. And our worst symptoms, mine and my daughter's worst symptoms, were headache. We had really bad headaches, but other than that, it really wasn't bad. Actually, I've had colds that were a lot worse than the symptoms that we had. And then Eric, he wasn't sick for very long either. So none of us had a bad case. It was all very mild. But then my family ended up all getting it because my parents were keeping our daughter while we were dealing with all the jaundice stuff. And we didn't know that she had come into contact with it. So we ended up giving it to all of them. They all had it. So COVID, after dealing with all the jaundice stuff, we were well from COVID for a week, like about a week, and then Jamie started having a lot of gas, tummy ache stuff, which, I mean, it was like all day long. Either he was screaming, eating, or sleeping. Screaming, eating, or sleeping, screaming. It was really bad, but I knew it was gas because he would pass gas and then he would cry, and it, you know, he was still acting normal. But at the end of that week, it was on a Thursday, he started acting not normal. And that first day, the first thing that I noticed was he just seemed a little bit weak. Not anything like super alarming. I was concerned enough that I was like, okay, I really need to watch this and make sure that it doesn't get worse, you know, because I'm not sure what's going on here. And especially because the weekend was coming up. Stuff always happens on the weekend. I don't know why, but it always happens on the weekend. So I said, well, I'm going to watch him really close. It was the evening, you know, Thursday afternoon when I noticed that. And I kind of just thought maybe he's just worn himself completely out from screaming with the tummy ache so much. Well, Friday morning, well, it was the mid-morning when he woke up, because he kind of sleeps in the morning some. He definitely, something was off. He was not normal. He was sleeping a whole lot, like super lethargic, almost to the point where he couldn't wake up. Like he would just lay down and close his eyes like he just couldn't wake up. And so we got a doctor's appointment, and they couldn't take us until that afternoon. Well, from that, it was like noonish. From that point until our doctor's appointment at 4 o'clock, things progressed really quickly. And I have notes here on my phone because I don't remember things at all right now. I'm totally brain dead. And if I don't look at the notes, I'll forget everything. But yeah, so the reason, and also by that point, I noticed that his soft spot was not, where is it? Here it is. His soft spot was not sunken in and soft like it should have been, which that totally freaked me out. Like when I noticed that, I freaked out. I was like, we have to go, we'd have to do something. So we actually ended up going to the doctor early because I just said we have to go do something. So we got to the doctor and she looked at him, and it's weird because the nurse and the doctor and stuff, they kept putting emphasis on, they thought that we were there because of the gas and tummy ache stuff. And I kept saying, like, that's totally irrelevant for the situation. That's not what we're here for. Like, his soft spot is not soft. And by that point, it was like there was no soft spot. It was like his head was solid, which was super, super alarming because, you know, that means either his brain is swelling or is bleeding. Like, those are the two things that would cause that to happen. So I knew that, and I mean, it was a terrifying thought, you know, and you kind of hope, well, maybe not, but we knew something was bad, you know. So we got to the doctor, and she looked at him, and she sent us straight to the children's hospital that was closest to us, which was about 45 minutes away. She sent us straight there in an EMS. She thought that he had viral meningitis. So, you know, obviously very serious. She thought that that's what it was. So we got to the ER, and actually I was in the ambulance. My husband had driven the car behind us, and he got separated. Just like when Miriam was born, he got separated from us because the traffic was so bad on the interstate. The EMS was having a hard time to get through, much less them letting him get through. So he got separated from us. Wasn't there when we got to the emergency room. It was but thankfully the people at this hospital were amazing. I can't even say enough good things about them. But we got to the ER, and they got him into one of the like critical ER rooms. And by the time we left the doctor's office, he had gone down so much. He was almost listless, like couldn't hardly wake him up. He wouldn't nurse. And what had really freaked me out, what happened was his pupils were different sizes, and that was because of the pressure on his brain. So we get in there, and they were going to do a spinal tap because, you know, the doctor had called ahead or whatever. They thought he had viral meningitis, but they did some tests and found out that he was his blood wasn't clotting and he was bleeding. And so they figured out that they did a scan. They went him in there and did a CT scan and found out that it was bleeding on his brain. It's hard to even remember everything that happened because it was the worst night you can ever imagine. So he had, they figured out they had bleeding on his brain, and he started having a seizure, and so they had to go ahead and put in a ventilator tube to stabilize him. And also they knew that they were going to have to do surgery to relieve the pressure on his brain from the bleeding, but they had to stabilize him before they could do that. That's how bad it had gotten that quickly. It really happened fast. So they were stabilizing him, and also he tested positive for COVID. And he had antibodies. So the doctors didn't think that he actually had it then. They thought that he had it before, since you don't make antibodies that quickly. But he did test positive for it. And the surgeon told us that he was not the first baby that she had ever done brain surgery on who tested positive for COVID. She said that was it was really a chance that contributed big time to having the brain bleed, because a viral infection like that can actually contribute to brain bleeding in babies. So if you get COVID and you have a little tiny baby, watch them like a hawk, because something happened and you don't realize it, and they go down so fast. So, and also while we were in the ER, because he tested positive for COVID, there's all this like additional restrictions, and you can't have people come and all this stuff. Like, it's really crazy. But they called like their supervisors and stuff, and they let my parents come back in the ER because no one in the ER thought he was going to make it. Like, that's how bad it had gotten. That's how quickly it had gotten that way. And at this point, I don't even remember what time it was when they got there, but they let my parents come back there to be with us because they didn't think he was going to make it. And so at this point, like, that literally is the most terrifying experience I've ever been through in my whole life. And your brain goes through these possible scenarios of what can happen. And so the first and most obvious and most devastating possibility is that we're going to be leaving the hospital without him to go plan a funeral, which I couldn't even bear to think. Every time my brain started going through these possibilities, I just pretty much lost it. The second was that he would somehow make it through surgery and have brain damage, and then we're going to have to learn to navigate that situation. The third, which seemed like it wasn't even an option at the time, was that he'd go through surgery, they'd be able to fix the bleed, and he would come out fine with no signs of brain damage. But like I said, that seemed like too much to even hope for at that point, because it was so scary. And those surgery, when they had him in surgery, that was the longest hours of my life. I've never experienced anything like that before. Eric's mom had gone and gotten us some food, and we went in this room so I could pump, because it had been like 12 hours at that point since I had had a good, since he had nursed, I had a good session nursing. So I was super engorged. We went to pump and tried to force down some food, which I was not very successful with, because I just couldn't even eat. It was ridiculous. And then all the people that were praying, it's really unbelievable, because I posted it on Facebook the next day. I think it was after he got out of surgery. I'm not sure. I don't even know. The days run together. And people were sharing it. My mom had called a couple of people who literally, they got on the phone and they started calling people. We had messages from people around the world, not even just the country, but literally around the world. Australia, Germany, Italy, like everywhere. And my mom had a notebook of pages full of people who said they were praying for him and messaging me on Facebook saying they were praying for him. It was really unbelievable. But anyway, so the surgery, we sat there through the surgery. I think it took about 2 hours, and the surgeon came in and told us that the surgery had been successful. She said that she was optimistic, but she didn't sound very optimistic. She sounded very cautious, like, the surgery was successful, but it's too early to get your hopes up. And they took us back. We were in the PICU, so they took him back to his room in the PICU, and of course he's completely sedated, on the breathing tube, all the IVs and pain meds and everything hooked up to him, so we couldn't hold him or anything like that. And that first night, we had the two best nurses. I know that our first couple of days and nights in the PICU, when we were so terrified and didn't know whether he was going to make it or not, I know that those first couple of days would have been so different without those nurses, because they were really amazing. I've never had a hospital experience like that. We have had a few different occasions when we were in the hospital, but these people were amazing. And because one thing too was because he tested positive for COVID, we were like in this isolation room where they didn't want us to leave. So we were stuck in here. And initially we thought that we were going to be in there for probably at least like 3 weeks, because the surgeon, when she came back, she said the surgery had been successful. They would wait a few days, do another scan, and then probably have to go back and do another procedure to drain more of the blood, because his skull's so tiny, and because babies can't take much bleeding. She had done a really tiny hole, smaller even than she had originally planned, and just taken out like what she could get from right there, because she said like you can't like dig around trying to get more, because you'll do more damage than good. So she had just gotten what she could get, and said depending on how the scans look, she would maybe have to go in and take more out. So the next day, I think it was the next day, they did another CAT scan, and there had been slight improvement, but not much. When we went in, what happened was his brain was shifted, his brain was shifted to the left, like 10 millimeters, 10 millimeters shifted to the left, and it was putting pressure on his brainstem and on the, that side of his brain. And that's why his pupils were different sizes, and that's why he was having the seizures, or a seizure. He did have another one later on. Then the next scan they did, I think it was an 8. So it had gone down just a little bit. And they still had you could still see some blood that was left up there and some fluid. And then they just, as the days, the next day they did another scan, and I think that time it was a 5. And then the next day they did another one, and it was a 3. Like, it just kept getting better. Every time they did, every day he got better. There were no days where he had setbacks. There was no time where it wasn't ever a 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It was every day he was moving forward. Every day he was getting better. We still, no one could come to the hospital and see him because of the COVID thing. But we were able to meet my parents out in the parking lot and see Mary Emma and get some things that we needed, because we didn't leave the house knowing that we were going to be in the hospital for a week. But so the day we went to the hospital was a Friday, and I'm wanting to say it was maybe Tuesday that they took him off the ventilator. I'm not really sure exactly what day it was. It was around Monday or Tuesday. They took him off the ventilator, and he did great with that. They said, he had to stay on it while he was sedated. It's kind of a catch-22 thing. But on the scan, the second to last or last one she did, the surgeon said that she did not see any signs of permanent damage. The only place that she saw a little bit of damage was here where she had made the incision and made the burr hole, they call it, which is your temporal lobe. And she said that is typically what controls the part of the brain that controls speech. So in the future he could have, some developmental delays. I sound like I have developmental delays. Developmental delays in speech, which I am perfectly okay with therapy. I will go to therapy every day for the rest of my life if that's what it takes, because we didn't think we were going to have him to go to therapy with. So that thrills me that looks like the only thing that we might be facing is a little bit of speech delays, because we really didn't think that we were going to be coming home with him. But yeah, so we they did all that stuff, took all the IVs out. He was off the pain med. He was not sedated anymore, and they just kept us for 2 more days to monitor his vitals to make sure that no problems were going to happen. And we told him we are in no rush to leave because we live an hour away, so we want to make sure that everything is good before we leave. So everything continued to be good. He had no problems. He came out of the sedation and seemed like a completely normal baby. I was able to start nursing him again. They had the breathing tube in, or the feeding tube in, so while he was sedated, part of the time he was having fluids, and then they reintroduced, he was able to have breast milk. I was pumping and they gave him breast milk. And then as soon as he came off of the feeding tube, a feeding specialist came and checked his latch, suck, and all that stuff, and I was able to go back to breastfeeding him. Those first couple of days were difficult. He did have some problems, and I was thinking that it was going to take a lot of therapy to get back to where we were. By the time we left the hospital 2 days later, he was back to where he was before any of this even happened, which totally blows my mind because he was having some pretty significant difficulties. We were making it work, but it was definitely really difficult. And by the time we left, it was like nothing had ever happened. He was nursing like a champ. When we got home, he literally was nursing every hour. He would nurse for an hour, sleep, and want to eat the next hour. So he would like nurse for an hour, sleep for an hour, nurse for an hour, sleep for an hour. And I told Mom, it's like he's trying to catch up for lost time. And he did that for about a week. And then he quit. He went back to a more normal schedule, every 2 hours or whatever. And he did. Like, I think he had gained over, I'm not sure, I think it seems like it was over a pound by the time we went for our follow-up. That was like a week and a half later. He was making up for lost time. But anyway, so we got home, and he just seems like a completely normal baby. It seems like nothing happened. I can't even express to you how thankful we are for that, and all the people who prayed for him. Like I said, that just blows my mind. And I know I'm saying "and" a lot. I'm sorry, it's just been a very exhausting time. Oh, so yeah, if you have a newborn, things to look out for. Like, check your baby's soft spot. Keep an eye on it. Feel it every day. Because that is the first indicator that you're gonna have, other than like lethargic behavior. If your baby is sleeping and you can't, like, way more than normal. But check your baby's soft spot. Keep an eye on it. Feel it every day. And thankfully, I was in the habit of doing that just because I'm a weirdo and I think their head feels so nice and soft. But check your baby's soft spot and keep an eye on it. And if it feels unusual in any way, shape, or form, take them to the hospital. Like, don't even go to the doctor. Just take them to the hospital and they will check it out, because that's a very, very serious thing. In hindsight, I wish we would have gone straight to the hospital once I realized that was the situation. But it was so close to time to go to the doctor, we went there instead. But yeah, so keep an eye on your baby's soft spot. Oh yeah, so we get home from the hospital, are settling back in at home, and then we all get sick again. So we all were sick for like, I actually just finally got over it because I think I got a sinus infection after whatever our colds or whatever we had. So we've been home for, let's see, like 4 weeks now, I think, and I'm finally getting well. It's been very challenging, but he's doing good. He, everything is going great. We could use a little help in the sleep department, but I'll take that and be happy for it. So let me check and make sure I didn't forget anything. Oh yeah, so the last thing, it's just been 2 months of trials. The last thing was our truck broke down. Par for the course. But that's been our story. That is where I have been for the last month and a half. That's why I have had no videos come out. But hopefully I'm gonna try to get back to at least semi-regular routine and be able to get some content out. It's very difficult trying to make videos with a clingy baby and a 2-year-old, almost 3. We'll see how it goes, but I'm gonna try to get back to normal. So thank you for joining, and I hope you have a great day. If you like to, please subscribe to my channel, and you can keep following along. We will have Baby James updates periodically, and you'll see him in my videos because I think this is the only way I'm going to be able to get him done. Is he's going to have to be worn because he doesn't sleep that long when he's not. So that's why we're standing and bouncing, because he doesn't sleep unless you move. And I hope you have a great night. Thanks, y'all. Bye. And look, why can I not finish this? And what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to say? Like, why can I not do this?